Well, happy day to you. I am Jen Yates. You're locked on to Jyneration Nation, LRS102.com, the Walrus, Louisville's rock stream. And oh, happy day. I'm super pumped. I've got Ray Rizzo up in my studio. What's up, Ray?
Oh, I'm great.
Man, you're one of my favorite drummers, so I'm very honored that you would come on LRS and talk to me because when I got this show, I was like, man, I want to feature drummers and musicians and local artists and, you know, people who do awesome things for the community. And you are one of those people, so thank you for coming in.
It is an honor.
Thanks. So you and LRS go back pretty far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How old were you when you first were tuned into LRS?
I moved here in '84.
Okay.
So, and I moved here from Virginia. So, DC 101
right on
was already WPGC were the radio stations that were always on. So when before we moved to Louisville, my dad came home and was like, "Well, we're gonna leave and we're gonna go to this place," and and he pulled out the encyclopedia and he looked it up and found Louisville, and I was like, God, I don't know anything about this. And then I was in 7th grade, so I had just gone to my very first concert. I saw Ozzy with Motley Crue on, and they were on the Shout at the Devil tour.
Oh, cool!
It was great. It was Bark at the Moon.
Yes, Bark at the Moon, man.
Yeah,
what a great one.
Oh man.
What a great tour to get to see.
Yeah, so I was like, life for me in Virginia was just kicking in a way that I was not interested in leaving. And then Van Halen came through, and I saw that they were going to be playing Louisville as well. So I was like, I think I'm going to be okay.
You know, everybody's at home cringing right now going, he's saying Louisville.
Well, no, but I mean, that's
right,
that's what someone out of town,
right.
I know how many syllables are in Louisville.
I always know if somebody's actually from here as soon as they say that word.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because anybody here, if you don't know and you're not from Louisville, they say Louisville.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I something kicks in with me because I've lived in Brooklyn now for years that I do kind of put the E in the middle just because I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
It's like the international easy way to pronounce Louisville.
Yeah. Well, I love just to teach people how to say it because they all struggle.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, just pretend that your mouth is completely numb from bourbon.
Yeah.
And you just say Louisville. Like,
Louisville.
you don't even have to move anything in your mouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the Louisville, Colorado.
I'm not familiar.
And they pronounce it Louisville. So it's interesting how it works. You know? Yeah. Anyway, well, that's cool. And did you get to see Van Halen when they came through?
I saw them in Virginia before we moved, so I didn't see them at Freedom Hall, but I saw them at the Capitol Center.
So you were birthed basically in rock and roll.
I'd like to think so. My dad was big with the radio on. So you were talking about Neil Diamond and Sweet Caroline. The month I was born, that was like
really
on in the house all the time, and we just had music happening. So my
sister's name is Caroline, so we always have to sing that song to her, and that's a song I feel like.
Do you add the other verse, the callback? Good,
no. But you know what's funny necessary. Is I always call that a standard. If you're playing the bar scene, the cover band circuit, it's like you can throw Sweet Caroline. People will run from different cities to come in and sing that song with you and do the bombs. You know what I mean? It's so funny. It's almost like that Christmas song, when we get to the middle and it's like 5 golden rings. Yeah. Everybody will run in from any room just to sing just that part. It kind of is very similar in that sense. But you got to love Neil Diamond, man.
Oh, no doubt. This is making me think of an interview I read with Robbie Robertson, and he was talking about living very close to Neil, or maybe it was, I don't know. He referred to it being very difficult being Neil's neighbor because Neil would walk over and play him a song that he was working on. And Robbie was like,
I love that.
You wouldn't be able to get the song out of your head for a long time. So it was like very difficult to...
Yeah, I love Kentucky Woman, and Cherry Cherry was always one of my all-time favorites.
Shiloh.
I just love that.
Shiloh's my...
Yeah. Do you want to hear my Neil Diamond story since we've got 2 hours to just chit-chat?
Yes.
Last year, I did a record down at Dark Horse Recording Studio in Franklin, Tennessee. And first off, I didn't Google the place. Some girl hired me. I liked her work. She could yodel really well. That's why I wanted to work with her.
All right.
Yeah, it was Americana country, right? So I go down there thinking I'm going to somebody's basement, and I pull up into this multi-million-dollar recording studio facility that's modeled after the Game of Thrones, by the way, and it's on thousands of acres of like farmland. That's Lord. Gorgeous, right? And I walk in, all these little guys run out to like, we're here to unload your drums, Miss Jen, you know, and all this stuff. And I thought, where in the world am I? You know, I don't have people coming out to unload my drums. But so I walk in, the first I see these gold records on the wall, and the first one I saw was Taylor Swift. And then Martina McBride's Wild Angels, and then it was like Faith Hill, you know, and all these people. I mean, Alison Krauss and Jyneration, and I was like, wow, were all these recorded here? Like an idiot, you know? And they're like, yes, this, you know, this studio sold over 100 million number one hits out of it or whatever. And it was everybody. I mean, and then I saw Neil Diamond up there, and I was like, man, that's wild. And down in the basement was nothing but Dolly Parton gold records, and where I was staying in the basement had her handwritten lyrics and chord charts on it framed. For Traveling Through was the name of the song. So I go back up and I'm like, what's with all the Dolly stuff downstairs? And they're like, well, Ken Wells, her producer, has the whole basement rented out. They exclusively use this, and Dolly crashes there in the same bedroom that I'm in, right? Whoa. So I'm like tripping out. So they start to tell me the story about Neil Diamond. He had recorded there recently, and they kept the producer that was working with me was the same producer that had worked with him. And he was telling me the story that they would always have to go find Neil on the property because he always carried his little 22 with him, and he would be out like putting matchsticks on the fence post and standing back like 100 foot and trying to light the match. With the bullet.
With the bullet.
So they were like, no, Neil, it's time to come lay vocals. Like, come on. He just kept disappearing and shooting matchsticks, evidently. Wow. That's my Neil Diamond story. Yeah. Rad, though, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, that record hasn't come out yet, but it's some of my best work yet, I feel. I mean, I had there were like 100 microphones on my drum set alone kind of thing.
Right.
You know, yeah, it was really cool.
Wow.
Yeah. The artist's name is Lori Jo Bridges, so...
I will. Yeah, you got to send it to me.
Yeah, Nashville chick.
Tell me.
Yeah, right on, man. So anyway, I want to educate our listeners, just in case they don't know who you are. I hope they all know who you are, on how you got your start in music. I know you used to listen to the radio, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but how did you get your musical start?
Well, it was. I think if they were prescribing drugs to kids when I was young, the way that they do now.
Yeah.
I probably would have been a Ritalin kid.
Yeah, I hear you.
I was really like nonstop, and when the teachers would complain, or I'd get come home with a report about having acted up, my mom's answer to the teachers was like, "Well, just give him more to do," and that actually kind of worked. So one of the things I was like hyperactively drawn to was sounds, hitting stuff. Like I can relate it now to rhythm, but it's really just like tone and something that I would hear and then want to hear again, and want to hit that cardboard box in just the spot to make it sound like something. And so I was one of those early absorbers of music in that way. And so I think by the time I actually held an instrument, television and the radio had put so much in my head. I think I was like already a bit of a mutant.
Yeah, right.
But I started formally learning drums with a fife and drum corps in Virginia called the Mount Vernon Guard.
Cool.
Which was started by this amazing gentleman. He was an attorney named Jack Harris, and it was originally from Ireland. Still had a whole lot of family there, and I don't know there are people who are still were part of the Guard who would know why he started it. I don't know why he started it, but every Saturday morning and Thursday night we would meet at the local middle school and rehearse, and you had to learn the fife before you could play drums. So I busted through that. He had a system of 6 holes, 6 numbers.
Yeah. Explain to our listeners what a fife is, just in case they don't know.
A fife is like a flute, and I think there's a lot of different versions of it. The ones we had came with a metal mouthpiece welded onto them, so you didn't have to worry about getting the technique to actually blow into an instrument. But yeah,
so you busted through that and then went right onto drums.
Yeah, right to tenor drum, which would be the equivalent of snare.
Yeah,
and then snare drum, and drum teacher was Lenny. He was it's similar to like the Leopard percussionists, where like Meg and all them, were part of the crew, and then they came back and educated, and Lenny was that guy.
It just keeps rotating. Girls Rock Louisville is very similar to that too. I feel like I've had so many artists in here talking about Girls Rock Louisville. We did the She Castle event to help raise money for them and all that stuff. What a great program we have. Yeah. That's why I love Louisville.
Yeah, well, and I can just from my experience with someone who brought me, into a greater understanding of drums. Those programs are just you have no idea how impactful they can be when you see an older human being not just telling you how to mind your manners or learn algebra, but like do something you really want to do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. By the way, I wanted to congratulate you on your Iroquois Park gig.
Thanks.
Over the weekend, because I hear it was a huge success. It looked amazing.
I think it turned out great.
Yeah. Had you ever played the Iroquois Park Theater before?
There was when I lived here. I know there was a previous time that I played maybe like a jazz gig or something. But last year I played with Tyrone Cotton when he opened for St. Paul and the Broken Bones. Yeah. So that was the first time I had been to Iroquois since they totally revamped it.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
amazing. What a great venue.
And Billy, I play in actually two tribute bands that formed right around the same time. One of them plays Fleetwood Mac music, and
which I love. I got to work with Kimmett for the first time the other day.
Oh,
Man, she is awesome.
Yeah.
She really is. We taught side by side for a long time, but we never worked with each other for some reason until you were involved in this, the Queens of Drag show with the drag queen who came out and sang.
And lip synced.
Yeah, who was the drag queen? Do you remember? Is it Jade Jolie?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Do you know that she was with Taylor Swift last night accepting the VMA award for Best Video for the video that she did with RuPaul? And not only was Todd McCall there beside of her, who is our Louisville Pride Highlands headliner here in a couple weeks, but Jade Jolie, the drag queen from Play, was there. She mimics Taylor Swift. So John Travolta hands the award to Jade Jolie thinking it's Taylor Swift. And Jade's from here in Louisville. I'm trying to land that interview. I think I'm going to get it. So we're going to fingers crossed.
She's so sweet. I'm sure you'll
yeah. But how funny that that's how we all connected. That was my first gig with Kimmett. Kimmett was off in the side of the room in Headliners singing while Jade Jolie was lip syncing to her with a full band behind her.
Yeah, we did
it was
Dreams.
Wild. Yeah, I love that track, man. How is it playing Fleetwood Mac stuff? Because Mick Fleetwood is one of my all-time favorite drummers. I went to see him for the first time at the Yum Center last October on National Hugger Drummers Day, by the way. It just so happened to be. But I once in Michigan got to play The Chain, and that is one of my favorite songs to play. And, of course, all through the years I've played Fleetwood Mac stuff. Gold Dust Woman was always another fave. Just Silver Spring. I love the dynamics you can get in Silver Spring.
Absolutely.
He's such a fascinating drummer to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's very when you open up that music, because most I think the thing that I cherish so much about our band, which is called Back to Mac. We were called Rumors, but there's another band called Rumors who are a little more busy and touring the country, and Kimmett had to keep answering Facebook posts for so we're now called Back to Mac. And I think the cool thing about us is that most of us grew up like when I mentioned being a kid and the radio being on, like this music just got in my blood.
In your soul, man. It was fantastic.
Like
and not only that, but the story behind Rumors is fascinating. If you have not watched the documentary on the making of Rumors, go do yourself a favor right now. They all hated each other, and they're all writing about each other. And there were times they couldn't even be in the same room together. You know what I mean? And they made one of the best albums of all time out of that. It's just mind-blowing and magical to me.
They glorified relationship dysfunction for generations to come.
Absolutely. And what band doesn't have that in some weird way?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's cool you're doing the Back to Mac stuff.
Yeah, but to get back to Mick, his drumming and his pulse and his feel is, I mean, if you go back and listen to the earliest Peter Green stuff with Fleetwood Mac,
before they joined the band, Lindsay and Stevie.
Yeah. So Peter Green is playing around London. John McVie and Mick are playing with another band. Mm-hmm. Peter Green's like, why don't you guys form a band with me? He names the band after the rhythm section. And
which is awesome.
Which is super awesome.
Hey, shout out to the rhythm section.
Yeah, well, to this day, the band is Mick and John basically. I mean, Mick for sure. I don't know how it works, but like the rotating cast of characters that have come in and out has remained. It's actually people are like, oh, I wish Lindsay were playing, or remember seeing him in the '80s with other musicians, but. It's always been a pretty rotating collective.
Yeah, no kidding.
But everyone obviously associates the music with Lindsay and Stevie, and that's definitely where we
center. Which is ironic, right? That's so ironic. Yeah.
Yeah. It just goes
to say, give the drummer some, man.
Exactly.
We're always saying, give the drummer some. Yeah. The drummers are the foundation, the rhythm section, that bass and drums, and those two have remained solid.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And they were there many years before. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of people who are, 10, 20 years younger than us who think Fleetwood Mac, there was a period where it was relegated to like, oh, that was at AM radio music. Like it sounds soft to people because it wasn't that 90s like
grit,
coked out in your face production.
Right.
It was a different kind of coked out production.
I'm going to ring my bell for you on that. Yeah. Yeah. There's, and it's so interesting. I had a rock and roll music professor say once to me, he's like, look, kids, I'm not advocating drug use, but I am going to say it sure made the music way more interesting. And then we looked at the drug use that was associated with songs of different eras. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
When LSD came into music, it got real interesting in the 60s.
Of course.
They're throwing theremins on stuff and just, and wacky time signatures and strange recordings. And it's just fascinating to me to watch the history of music with production as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Now all the LSD is in Silicon Valley and microdosing programmers.
Oh, it's wild, isn't it? So what's your other band? What's the other one? The other tribute band that you're in?
It's called Steely Danish.
That's right, Steely Danish. Yeah, and you all do.
We are very Steely Danish.
Yeah, that's the one with Scott Anthony.
And Danny Kiley.
Danny Kiley, I love. Yeah, I need to get him up in here.
The way these bands formed in, I started doing this thing in, well, the story starts sooner, or earlier, but in 2009, I started doing a collaborative thing called Mother Lodge. I'd been living in New York for a while, and I brought people from New York to Louisville to do shows. I was doing a lot of theater in New York at the time, and outside of the city, the Humana Festival of Plays is a really big deal for people. So to plan something around that time here was a really cool thing to do, and we did it at the Rudyard Kipling on 4th and Oak, which everyone in the room is nodding right now.
Yeah, the Rud. We love the Rud. I miss the Rud.
Me too, yeah. And the doing these shows, we started talking about the idea of like trying to come in and maybe work at the Rud. Like Tracy and I come back from New York and have this kind of place that we could work from, and it ended up being way too big and ambitious. It was way too ambitious an idea, but for about 8 months, we were in town, and one of the Mother Lodge shows we did was the very first Rumors show that we played, and we I don't know if you remember the room. It's a great room to play acoustic music, but and if you play super loud rock, it can be very incredible. But there's that kind of middle ground where it was a very difficult room
to run sound in.
Yeah, and didn't have the strongest of sound equipment there. Anyway, so we took a big sub, like 18-inch speaker and whatever that low-end horn thing is, and took it in the basement and jammed it under the floor facing up.
Oh, wow.
And got a power amp just for this little sub so that we could play Fleetwood Mac music and me not go crazy. It worked so good. It transformed the room. And at that point, I was like, well, I know I'm here for the next month or so, and Danny and Scott are, some of my oldest best friends, and I started getting to know Chris Rodehofer at that point.
Rhodey,
so I was like, let's just get in, we'll play a weekend of Steely Dan, and I only asked them because the Fleetwood Mac show went so well, and I was like, God, there's a sub under the floor. This is what other music that's like this could we play and really knock out of the park? So we actually all owe Sunday's show to this little. Derek Podolski put the sub under the floor. And
That's wild, man. That's wild. I love that. I'm fascinated with sound stuff anyway, and I love a sub. I mean, kids today want their music like rattling their soul, and I'm kind of the same way because I kind of was a club kid, later on, and I was like, oh, I'm used to all those big subs. Yeah. What a cool idea, though. Genius, man.
Very fortunate it all worked out.
You stay so busy. Do you remember how we met, by the way?
No.
I don't either.
I would immediately go to, the Rudder Moms.
It was either the Rudder Moms, because over the years I've done a lot of your Mother Lodge projects, with different groups and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, the Queen's show was a collaboration that I did with Nina and Cheyenne when they had their Strive.
Yeah, by the way,
nonprofit.
Cheyenne Mize was in here a couple weeks ago. Her parents met working for LRS. How crazy is that?
I love that.
It's a genius story,
Wow.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to that, go back. It's on my YouTube archives,
Y'all need to work that into your outreach, for when you need, assistance here. Like, look what working for LRS can do for you.
That's good advertising. And they're holding hands, in old age.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So that the queens of pop, the queens of drag, the queens of country, the queens of everything, basically.
Yeah.
It was a great little benefit that we did together at Headliners. Yeah. What was that, year before last?
Year before last.
Around Christmas.
Yeah.
It was the first time I'd ever had to, second time I ever had to wear a mustache while I was playing. First time was, you'll love this story, Beverly McClellan, my soulmate in music who passed away in October, rest her soul.
Sorry.
We played Ohio Women's Music Festival once, and she brought us these mustaches that stick on. And she was like, here, we're going to go out there and we're going to wear these mustaches right in front of these thousands of people. It's just the two of us on stage.
Yeah.
And so I put mine on. She put hers on. We took a bunch of pictures. They come for us to go on stage. We go on stage. Well, she turns around and takes hers off. Well, I can't see it because I'm back here on drums. So the whole rest of the hour, I'm with a mustache and she is not.
She shot you through the grease, as they say.
She did that on purpose. She loved to, pull some shenanigans and have fun.
That's awesome.
Keep you on your toes, she would say. Anyway, So, and I also got to come up to your place and stay when you were in New York. A couple of times I've met up with you in New York. It's kind of funny. We never met up the second go round. But,
right.
Yeah. But I petted your dog and stuff like that and looked through your book collection. Which is really fascinating. I loved your book collection. I meant to tell you that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
That was a wild trip. As soon as I flew into New York, there was a blizzard. Literally the hour after I got there.
Oh,
so
wow.
I woke up to entire cars being covered in snow.
Yep.
And I was not prepared for that. But it was interesting.
Were you able to get around where you needed to go?
I got around. I had to carry those cymbals you let me borrow all throughout the subway in Times Square in a blizzard.
Welcome to New York.
Yeah, and then we were rehearsing somewhere there in Times Square. I did a record that's out with this chick named Babylon. She's like a pop rock artist kind of thing.
Yeah.
She's since moved from New York City down to Austin, but she had hired me to come up there, rehearse, learn her show. I recorded on her record and whatnot. Yeah, and Jeff Jones, I think, produced some of that, and it was a really interesting project. Yeah.
Love it.
Called, what was it? Oh, Southern Roses, Heart Attacks and Southern Roses. Yeah. Which was, she would write some interesting stuff. She found me online, and then I listened to some of her stuff. It was like 7/4 and 5. She was writing pop songs in 5/4. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
So I was like, ooh, I'm interested in this. Yeah.
You have to tell me more about that being found online thing. I think I'm closing in on finally finishing a website that I can live with.
Yeah.
And I just...
Yeah, it's hard, everything you've got to keep up with as an artist or even as a performer. Everybody today, even bookers now, are like, let's see your online presence,
Right.
Yeah, and I'm like, good thing was always kind of a techie geek. I've got a tech degree to fall back on if music never... I went back to college in my 30s and... was like, man, if this music thing doesn't work out, I need to figure something out, But it was cool because I'd always done radio, and here we are on LRS. It's all full circle.
We need to talk more about this too, because the reemergence of LRS this way is so great. Like,
isn't it? It's the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
Like what we were just saying before the show about it retaining all the character that was so special about this station is like that's the kind of those are the things that need to move forward. Like, I'm just so grateful to be in here and see what's going on.
We're grateful to have you, man. We're gonna take a short break, and we were talking all kinds of cool things, rock and roll earlier, and I have all kinds of eclectic mix, and I know you do too because I've seen some of your record collection. But we're gonna kick it off with some James. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
It's Laid. You're locked on to LRS102.com, The Walrus.
Yeah.
This is where it continues to get weird. You know what I'm saying? It's Spinal Tap with Big Bottoms on LRS102.com, The Walrus. I am Jen Yates. You're locked on to Jyneration Nation, and I'm joined by Ray Rizzo. How you doing, man?
I'm great.
Yeah, we were just in here rocking out to some Spinal Tap.
Yeah, you're playing the best jams.
Yeah, of course, man. We get to. That's the coolest thing about LRS these days. We're live streaming, which is kind of new school, which I love. People all over the world can tune in, and we've already had people, messaging us from every show from all over the world, so it's cool.
Yeah, Are you familiar with WFMU?
Yes,
in Jersey. Like, this has really got an FMU vibe.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, we'll take it. Yeah, we love it. We're doing all kinds of cool things these days at LRS. So, Ray, I want to talk about all the bands you've been in because you've been in kabillion bands. I thought that I was a side player as a drummer because you stay crazier busier than I could ever stay. You know what I mean? It's funny because I feel like as drummers, we play in an accompaniment instrument. Yeah. We're always having to find people to work with. And you and me, I feel like, have a similarity in that sense. I like to continually work with new people.
Yeah.
I'm always searching for the coolest collaboration I can find.
Yeah. Well, and you've also done theater.
Yes,
shows,
lots
right?
of theater.
Like
I love theater, man.
That is a trip and a half. Yeah, it's the best.
Theater took me to L.A. When I look at it, it took me to Florida. I honestly took theater because my therapist recommended me do that.
Yeah,
for my focus.
Oh,
as you were saying, you would have been a Ritalin kid.
Right.
Well, I've always been all over the place, and I always, was had a drive like no other. So I would just constantly do all kinds of things at once.
Yeah.
Staying busy has always made me happy. So. I feel like my therapist said you need to take musicals because you would have to stay present for that entire section, and I did, and then I found I loved it.
Yeah, I mean that it's really to me it's all about the clock. Like when someone asks me to play or asks us to play a song, what I think they're looking for is how we clock the music or what our clock is. Like there's a few ways to describe it, and what's amazing about theater is your consciousness is heightened from 30 minutes before the show starts until the very last minute.
Yeah,
and if you're not active, with your voice at the moment or with your body, you're active with your ears. Like you have to stay conscious the whole time, and it really does put. It shifts consciousness. When you're not like,
absolutely.
Oh, I need to play this song, and I missed that chorus or this and that. It's like, well, you're in the if you think about it like you're just in a continuum of the evening, like
right.
It's all about how you.
It's an entire show that just never stops. That's what's so fascinating about live theater, and I love theater too because you're working with gigantic groups of people at once.
Yeah.
For one main goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you get to meet so many cool people. And I've just always loved theater. I always loved drama.
Me too.
And I talk about this a lot, but I love art in the sense that, if we want to write Sweeney Todd and chop somebody up and put him in a meat pie and serve him,
right.
we can do that in theater.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable in your everyday life, but in this imaginatory dream world, of theater, it is possible. Yeah. Same with music.
Yeah.
You can write any lyric you want. You know what I mean? It's an expression.
It's really important that be preserved too, because I think however you look at the way the world is right now, there's an assault that's going on our imagination.
Absolutely.
And the imagination is, frankly, I think the only ticket we have out of the more oppressive things that are going on.
Yeah.
And, I was reintroduced to theater through the Humana Festival in 2003. I did a play, and they called me because they needed an actor, but it wasn't an equity contract, and there's a whole story to it. But what really at that point I was super burned out. Like I had been playing with Days of the New, and that was like going down fast.
Right.
And so
Days of the New, also another great band to come out of Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that also, like in a collective kind of way, involved a lot of different musicians from around here. Some of of whom probably aren't bragging about their time in the band.
That's funny.
Anyway, when I got to do this play for the Humana Festival, I met some people who felt about theater the way I used to feel about making music and doing shows, and it was a real important turn for me, to think a lot about what it means to get people in a room and what you want to have happen, and and I think even just from a drummer's perspective, where it's like, well, I didn't set this show up. I'm not the one having to sing the songs tonight. Like, it's
right.
You having a greater consciousness about the whole endeavor is really important, because we're playing drums, and the primal thing is still there. When we were talking before about Mick Fleetwood, like when you listen to that music, he is crushing those drums. It's
fascinating.
Such a powerful thing, and yeah, so
fascinating, man. The bands you've been in are mind-blowing to me. I mean, we can't even go through all of them.
Right.
But you did some time in King Kong, because that's when I kind of first was turned on to you.
That was another life-changing experience, working with Ethan Buckler. His sense of arrangement and construction of music. I mean, he had played a lot by that time with Dave Pajo and all those guys, and I just have the highest regard for all of them, what they were, because there was no culture around them saying this is a cool thing to do.
Right.
They're just like digging in and making this music purely from inside their own heads. And the time I worked with Ethan was really powerful for me. Like to get to think about music the way he thought about it and appreciate things. It disarmed me in a lot of ways. Like, I wasn't able to have certain conceits that I previously thought about. It's
always fascinating too to find an artist who really pushes you, creatively. I'm definitely more of a creative spirit. That's why I love music.
Yeah.
Is to be able to express myself through it and create my own stuff. You know what I mean? And as a drummer, I write mostly off of rhythm-based ideas. And I love to find artists who just do the complete opposite sometimes, to take you out, because I don't like a box ever.
Right.
And I feel like you're never in a box. You're always with different artists. Your experience is very broad. The theater thing, I always try to say that I think theater drumming can be, other than jazz drumming, can be some of the hardest drumming ever. And I finally felt like when I got to theater and started doing so many that, I am successful at doing this, because I've done enough now, that I don't have to continue doing this. I've got the resume built.
Yeah.
But theater drumming, having to read a piece of music, or 200 pieces of music a night and stay focused, and, a lot of those plays have underscore nonstop.
Right.
And then also the diversity you have to have playing all these different instruments. You know, you're also playing. One thing I love about you, I saw you play a show at the Lebowski Fest, I think it was. And I think you were with Rhodey. I can't remember what group it was, though. And you were playing a bass synthesizer on the left side, I think, of some sort while you were drumming. And I've always been fascinating with electronics being mixed in and drummers doing that and whatnot, you know, which we can do today with MIDI and all these cool machines. So that's fascinating about you. I love that you can do both the melody lines and the drumming at the same time.
Thanks. That was birthed out of necessity, really. When I moved to New York, I reconnected with my friend Dawn Landis, and she was playing and starting to get tours, and it was like back of the van tours, but that could barely, afford one person going out, and so I carried this keyboard around and started kind of working with it. It became something I can do. Before that, I would. Sometimes have a conga drum or a hand percussion with me. And
you've always got some kind of interesting setup.
Well, it just at some point I started asking myself, how many limbs do I really need to rock? I got to sit down at Rick Allen's kit one time.
Wow, no kidding.
And
that's cool.
And I was like, wow, the language of this music, like if you really are playing the part and you know how the music goes, I don't need all four limbs.
Right,
to do it.
Just so our listeners, just in case they're too young to know, Rick Allen is the drummer of Def Leppard who has one arm.
He has one arm.
Yes, and he's a one-arm drummer. And they also, I found it fascinating that they created a lot of those electronic foot pedals for him.
Yeah. And he's got three, we're going to go deep into drumming. He's got three hi-hats set up with different tensions. So one of them is super tight, and the other one's a little open, and then the other one's wide open.
Oh, yeah.
So he can just whichever one he needs to hit. Like,
man, that's genius.
Totally genius.
Yeah, you don't have to raise the foot of it, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Ooh, fascinating. Did he have a remote hi-hat too, or just the ones on the left side?
They were basically in front of him, and then he had the snare where you would expect it, and two toms that were acoustic regular toms, and each one had a trigger to a pedal on his left.
Yeah.
So to do a fill, he would go right hand, left foot on the snare, right hand, left foot on the rack tom, right hand, left foot.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's all about that left foot for him, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I've never been behind his kit. That's pretty amazing. But I've sat really close to watch him play.
Yeah.
And seen him play solos and stuff. And to be missing your left arm, I don't know. Was he a normal righty drummer? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah, I was curious about that. But he's missing his snare drum left arm if he's a right-handed player.
Yeah.
If he was a left-handed player, he's missing his hi-hat.
Right.
If he did it open-handed. So yeah, that's just fascinating to me, isn't it?
Yeah.
Man, there's also a girl I got turned on to online. Of course, I'm always being sent drum videos and things like that. But there's a girl who actually only has a limb. I forget her name. I'll find it.
She doesn't have a body, just a limb.
No. She's missing her left limb. And she's just got a nub from her shoulder down to her elbow. And she's missing her hand. And she straps a drumstick on there.
Oh, hell yeah.
And plays drum solos and is like badass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I sent her a message and I said, you inspire me to keep playing. It's people like you that blow my mind.
Yep.
And then shared her stuff in all the Drummer Girl, United Facebook groups and all these cool things that you're a part of today.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fascinating. Anytime somebody has an obstacle that they have to overcome physically and they're doing something amazing with it, it just warms my heart. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's very inspiring to others, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so are you doing any creative projects right now?
Yeah, I've been since like 2010. I've been a member of a ambitious band called Frogbelly and Symphony, and I say ambitious because we're half of us were based in Brooklyn, and the other half are based in the UK.
Okay.
The band is centered around a couple, Liz Hanley, who's a fiddle player and singer, and her husband Thomas, who's a songwriter and producer, and we started playing years ago and made some records, but not really pushed ourselves to. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is we haven't broken up yet.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
We keep finding ways to make it work and find ways to play, and we've got some new music out. And
that's cool,
and
man. I love the name, by the way.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate.
So say it one more time.
Frog Belly, and Symphony. Yeah, it's one of the coolest bands I've ever got to be a part of.
One of my favorite parts of music is the creative part of it. The creative side of it.
Well, that I ran into someone at that show. You mentioned the show on Sunday. Yeah. Which for people who don't know, was 4 bands of local musicians playing 4 different tribute sets. I Heart Hart. Yeah. With Carly Johnson and Steely Danish and Back to Mac, and then E.L. Foe. Right. Playing ELO. And I ran into someone who was like, "Man, this is really cool and the music's great, but I'm worried about how it, how it impacts the creative side of things." And I appreciate his response. Actually, I don't think I could fully formulate all my feelings about it within whatever time we have left to talk. Right. But I feel like if first off, if I were doing cover music nonstop or things like that, I would have to check myself. But the relationship between music that already exists and music that I'm continually making with in a lot of different scenarios, they're interchangeable. They're dependent on each other, and right. I could see that. Yeah, it's actually a very it's a liberating thing to get together with players who are as strong as Kimmett and Danny Flanagan and Todd Johnson. Yeah, I mean they're all the top musicians in the city. Yeah, I mean, if we in my eyes at least. Yeah, if we got together to play some songs we had been writing, I'm sure it would be amazing, but it wouldn't be the experience that happens when we get together and play this music that we all have a relationship with. It's not our music. We just get to pour ourselves into it. Yeah. Well, I definitely think concerning the Fleetwood Mac said that there's just magic around that band. I don't know if Stevie Nicks did some kind of voodoo-y, kind of witchy, which I love, but it's just magic around that. Not only from the making of the record to the band itself and how it formed and where it is today, and then to continually playing that music. I know when I play Fleetwood Mac, there's just something magical about it. People get on the dance floor, they just love that stuff. So maybe you can look at it there might be a kid there that had never heard of Fleetwood Mac before, that you just introduced them to that, and they can share that experience with their family. Because their parents liked Fleetwood Mac or their grandparents liked Fleetwood Mac, I don't think tribute bands will ever go away. I think we will all, humans like hearing the same stuff that we love. You know? I mean, I when I go, if I go to Decca on Monday, I want to hear Mike Hyman and Danny, Kylie, and Tim Whalen play these standards that no one's going to accuse them of playing covers. Right. I understand that because of consumerism and the difference between popular music and whatever, we get these ideas in our head, but it's all just a continually and it's an exchange. It's a cycle, totally. Yeah, and it's cool to get to play some of that stuff. I feel like every song can teach you something, no matter whether you're writing it or whether you're playing somebody else's stuff. You can always learn something. That's the great thing about music. You'll never know everything about music. Yeah. There'll always be another song that you'll have to learn. That's right. And it might have the same pattern. And what blows my mind even more is that in Western music, you only have 12 notes that make up everything we have ever heard, here. In this, it's just mind-blowing to me. Yeah. And the cool thing about Louisville,
since we're on LRS, is the fact that we have such a diverse music scene here that tends to be overlooked a lot, I feel like, because on that, from a greater perspective out on the outside world, because we can go hear jazz almost, wherever we want on the weekends. We can go down to Stevie Ray's and hear some great blues.
Yeah.
We can go hear some metal bands up at Tap Room. I mean, those kids pack it in. I saw some of the best metalhead kid bands, recently, just since I've joined the station, trying to get on LRS Fest, which we brought back. I don't know if you know that. That's coming in October, the first weekend there.
Of course. Yeah. I think Louisville is well represented in terms of like hard-hitting metalish music. I don't know if Girlwood would appreciate being called metal.
Yeah. I think so.
White Reaper.
Yeah, White Reaper, man. I mean, we have
saw
some
White Reaper open for Deerhoof in Brooklyn, not knowing they were from Louisville.
Right.
And just had my face blown off. It was...
Yeah. And you know what? I got the pleasure of teaching that kid on drums for about a couple years.
That makes total sense.
And now I'm here at LRS and he's in our playlist and they're like selling out headliners. It just blows my mind. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. But
he was already good before he got to me, but I just taught him some basic technique stuff and foundational things and tried to get him to really understand quarter notes, eighth notes, and then look at him now.
Yeah.
That's why I love to teach, man.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, thank you for teaching.
Well, I mean, I always give him love online and stuff like that. I was like, you were already great before I ever got to you. So it's just a pleasure to get to teach a kid like that,
Yeah.
And then watch them excel and just wow. And Girlwood, same way. I just contacted them. I'm going to try to get them up in here on the studio when they're back in town off their tour.
I love them.
Yeah. Man, awesome.
Yeah, I saw them in Cincinnati I've been trying to see them when I would be in town, but there was never a show when I was here, and then I happened to be in Cincinnati one night, and they were part of this like Friday night festival or something. It was so great.
Yeah. And another great example of, original material coming out of Louisville.
Yeah.
Just original bands from rock to pop to R&B to soul. I've heard some of the best artists here, what I mean? And met with some of them, as have you. So we're always looking for that collab.
Yeah.
I do feel like music is all about the collaboration.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Yep.
And I feel like more so than about the playing skills, because, a lot of people can play music great. It's more about the chemistry.
Yeah.
That's what made the Fleetwood Mac group so like fascinating. Once they finally got that round of chemistry, man, it was magic from that moment on. So I'm always looking for those new artists here in town. If you ever find them, you send them my way because we want them on LRS.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, and then you've also done all kinds of stints. You toured with Josh Ritter for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been in his band now for about 3 years. It's incredible.
Yeah. And tell our listeners what kind of artist Josh Ritter is, in case they don't know.
Yeah. Well, he's mostly categorized as an Americana writer. He's been at it now for 20 years, which is mind-blowing to everyone in the band. And I don't know. Actually, when I hear Josh, I hear a lot of I hear a lot of roots in music that I heard growing up here in Louisville. Bands like Domani or Danny Flanagan's Rain Chorus, Freak Water. Josh is a huge Palace Brothers and Will Oldham fan. So it's a very natural kind of scenario for me to have been brought into. And then Zach Hickman, his bass player, has been playing with Josh since they were both in college and playing coffee shops, and he's a monster. He was Ray LaMontagne's music director for a while, and I'm very, very
group.
fortunate. Yeah, and plus, like, half of the band are dads, and we usually have Josh's girls out with us, so everyone's in their PJs and in bed by 11:30. So it's the best kind of tour.
Yeah, exactly. Heck yeah. What musician doesn't want their gig to be over before like 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm loving that these days too.
Yeah.
I'm not playing so much anymore. I am playing, but just side playing kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Working more on my own solo record,
That's
which I've been doing. Yeah, you're gonna love it. It's me basically being like the female Eminem and ripping everyone a new one. It's more of a diss thing, but I call it my revenge record. It's all about just things that drive me crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm totally trying to not fit in a box. You know what I mean? And the last one I did off of that record is Bougie, which I put on a wedding dress. I had to call my parents and be like, look, I'm not getting married in case you see me coming across Facebook in a wedding dress. But I thought, and I did it last year right around this time, because on my 40th birthday, I was like, what can I do that will make Jaws drop in a video for my own solo stuff? Because the track was already written. I'd written it like a year beforehand. And it was a diss track to an ex. But one of my guys said, why don't you go really feminine? Because you never dress like super feminine, and I think that might blow people's minds, right?
Yeah.
And he said, you should put on a dress. And I thought, well, that's kind of genius. I love that idea, right?
Yeah.
So I go home and I'm telling my roomie, I'm like, man, I wish I had a dress, because I haven't owned a dress. I mean, I don't think I've ever owned a dress. I think my mom owned the dresses, not me. You know what I mean?
You can't play drums in a dress.
No, and I was always a gender bender and confused about my own gender identity, you know, so I was always like more shopping in the boys' collections and, you know, more running out on the farm, you know, and stuff like that, down in the ditches. I was always a tomboy.
Yeah.
And so I would rather wear a tie or a tux than any dress any day of the week. But anyway, my roommate had a dress. She goes, I got out this whole wedding dress. And she brought it out and she said, put it on. I said, really? And she goes, yeah. So I did. Next thing you know, it fits perfect. And then we go on to film the video in it.
Right on.
Which was kind of hilarious, because behind the scenes, nobody could take me seriously. It was hard to keep a straight face during a lot of that.
Yeah.
I was just having a lot of fun. Yeah. Poking fun at myself, basically.
I love that you did it for your 40th too.
I dropped it on my 40th birthday to the world. I said, this is my present to the world. I always like to drop solo, like singles, on important dates to me. Yeah, and my birthday is always a good one. The year before that, I had Drop a Trailer on them by Hillbilly Swagger, which is me and Bev, basically. I produced it here in the Highlands. But that one samples a hook from a Hee Haw skit. And it's also a hip-hop track.
Wow.
And then in the end, we sample You Get a Line, I Get a Bowl. Yeah. So we basically like hook all this crazy stuff together, you know, in that one. So I always like to drop stuff, you know, on important dates and whatnot.
I'm turning 49 next year, and I was thinking it'd be a good time to finally make a record of my own.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring.
Yeah. You know, I just love to lock myself in a room sometimes, and because I am so social, sometimes for me to be creative, I have to seclude myself for a long period of time, I feel like, too. And now I understand why writers go off on these retreats and hide out in the woods for, a year to make this or whatever, because when you're secluded like that, you are forced to be more focused on the creativity side of it. But eventually I was like, I want to do my own solo stuff, and everybody kind of kept pointing me in that direction, and I was like, well, I don't sing really, so I don't know what I would do. Vocals kind of terrify me in a way, other than just some backing stuff. And then I started working with this lady who is a Juilliard music vocal opera grad, and she was like, man, you have this great voice. I'd done radio for years.
Clearly.
Yeah. I did radio for years, and my whole life, that's the one thing I got was, I love your voice. I love your voice, and I was like, yeah, but I don't sing, so I never used it in my music per se. Maybe my professional daily life. But yeah, and I worked with her, and she convinced me that I had a great voice, and then Beverly McClellan really put me over the top with that. She was like, no, you have a great voice, and yours mixes great under mine. You have this bassy thing going on that I wish I had. So she would write stuff and then leave me in a room, to write my own thing and to record my own vocal lines. And kind of pushed me to do that. And next thing you know, I'm on every track. It wasn't ever set out to be like that. It just naturally happened. So
that's
amazing. Why can't I do my own solo stuff? I can, So, and again, you can collaborate with all these cool artists, pull them in on the project.
Totally.
So I highly encourage you to do that, because you put out records your whole career, why not do something? I would buy that. I'll spin it on LRS. Hey.
Right on.
Yeah. So Ray, it's so cool talking to you, because I mean, we could go in depth with theory and drums and everything, all day long. We're gonna take a short break though, and I want to spin a track That is one of my all-time favorites. It's by King Kong, even though you're not on drums on this one, you said. And it's called the Tornado Song. Every time a tornado comes, I'm singing this song at the top of my lungs, and it cracks me up still this day. So, yeah, we're going to listen to that. You're locked on to LRS 102.com, Jyneration Nation. All right, that is Sex and Candy, Marcy's Playground on LRS102.com. I am Jen Yates, the Generator. You're locked on to Jyneration Nation, LRS102.com. The Walrus, Louisville's rock stream, and I'm joined by the ever so awesome Ray Rizzo. How you doing, man?
I'm generating.
Yeah, Generator. You know Beverly McClellan gave me that name. She would write songs. She would be like up with the generator, pumping out them number one hits all night, and she would write it into her lyrics, which I thought was funny, so I just kept it. The That's Generator. Amazing. Yeah, I love it. She's like, you just generate energy, So that's how it came about. And of course, we were both kind of country, so
Yeah.
I want to talk about that new record that you just recorded on. You recorded on a while back.
It was like a year or two.
Or two ago. Yeah, the Bob Weir thing. How was that? Because Bob Weir is a huge name.
Yeah, It was a dream. It was something I didn't actually tell anybody about until after it had happened, because I didn't want to get freaked out about it.
Of course not.
And it wouldn't be intentional, but I'm sure I could imagine I would call my brother or somebody who I knew who this really, because I always had respect for the Dead, but I didn't really know them very well. But at the same time, when someone would say, "Oh, I can tell you're a Kreutzmann fan," I would never say no. He and Mickey were...
Man, Mickey Hart is one of... In fact, I was going to say this to you earlier when we were sitting here having our interview. I just kind of thought this in my head. I was like, Ray Rizzo is kind of like the Mickey Hart of Louisville, because you kind of are. Mickey Hart is on a whole... Money. Right, no kidding, right? Mickey Hart, to me, is on a whole different level. There are some artists that I like to call them anointed. And meaning they use their music for other purposes. They don't just do it because they love it. They actually do it to either heal. I call the troubadours of Divine Bliss anointed musicians.
Oh, amazing.
They use their music to heal others, and it makes other people happy, and it's very joyous to watch. I feel like, he studies brain waves and uses science and technology in his stuff. I've actually got to touch his beam before, which was one of my favorite things ever. I know that sounded kinky, but but if you know anything about the Grateful Dead, they had this thing called the beam that he invented, right? And that you can probably educate people more than I can, but
I think you should.
It's this big long piece of wood thing with all these strings, and he'll hit it sometimes with weird bows and different things. And what's the famous drum solo that they did, like Time and Space? And the Grateful Dead was so fascinating to me because they created their own sound coming out of like the San Francisco area, which is still, studied today. And they're still going, which also kills me. They all kind of just broke up and did their own little things. And you'll find this fascinating, and then we'll talk more about your record, because this is just mind-blowing to me. But Mickey Hart was always one of my favorite drummers, and I've read his books. I highly recommend, is it The Magic of Drumming?
Drumming at the Edge of Magic.
Drumming at the Edge of Magic.
Yeah.
Read that book. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And that will show you what kind of other plane he is on with his rhythms and studies of,
and just the endeavor of that record, or that book rather, was, at the time, there wasn't anything like it. No one had that knowledge and had put it into a form that we could read and start to understand, and through the process also understand Mickey's pursuits a bit better. Like, it was such a generous work.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating. I remember just reading that over and over, that book. I teach a student, an older student, who was actually at the 1968 Grateful Dead show when they performed at Bellarmine.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he has a recording of all of it, and he loaned me a copy. It's pretty fascinating, and he has all these amazing stories about the Grateful Dead. He was down. He went to the university down in New Orleans. I can never pronounce
Loyola?
it. Loyola, yeah. So he went there for a while. So he spent a lot of time in New Orleans, and he went to, and this ties back to you and the Fleetwood Mac thing. He went to see Fleetwood Mac when it was Peter Green, before the other ones were there. In 1980, I think he said. Would that have been right? No.
No. That
earlier than that.
Yeah, maybe 1970.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Either way, he went to see Fleetwood Mac when they opened down in New Orleans on Bourbon Street with the Grateful Dead. Yeah, and that was also the night that the Grateful Dead got arrested for smoking pot on Bourbon Street, which they went on to write about in
Mythical
Truckin'.
Story. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, and his story goes like this. The night after they got arrested and after he went to watch the concert, he was hitchhiking and he got picked up by none other than Jerry Garcia picked him up and gave him a ride. And he asked him if the Grateful Dead would ever play New Orleans again, because some of their band members had been arrested that night, the night before. And he said, I don't know, kid. He said, and it was many, many, many years before they actually did go back.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
That is amazing.
Yeah, but he also was at the original concert when they played here in Louisville at Bellarmine University, which is fascinating, and has a copy of the entire show.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty fascinating.
Yeah, see, while we're talking, I'm reliving the part of me that was petrified to do this session, because my knowledge of the Grateful Dead, like I said, was so
narrow.
small.
Yeah.
And there were times, there was this moment in the session when Scott from the National, Scott Devendorf, was playing bass, and I could tell he had like really worked up some energy to be like, Bob, could I ask you just one question? And Bob was like, yeah, sure. And then it was about some Dick's Picks things that Scott really needed to know about. Actually, it had to do something with like some onstage banter and the band possibly making fun of Steely Dan. Actually.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I just remembered that.
Ooh, I want to know what the answer was now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you won't have to Google very far to find out.
Yeah, probably not, yeah.
But I thought that was so cool. There was another moment where someone remembered something to Bob, and he was like, well, I don't remember that, but okay.
Yeah, he probably doesn't remember a whole lot.
I was like, man, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember so much. Like,
I know.
It's like, I thought that was such a heroic answer.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I trust you.
Yeah, exactly. So I bet I probably would be terrified too to go into a studio with some dude like that from the Grateful Dead, And, yeah. So how did the session go?
Well, the fortunate situation of all that brought the whole thing together is a musician who I'm friends with in New York named Josh Kaufman. Josh and I met when I was playing with Don Landis, and was just already collaborating with, like you mentioned, collaboration. This guy was like, he's still just going all through Brooklyn, and he had really hit it off with the guys in the National. So there was a Bob Weir National collaboration that was put together, and Josh was brought in to music direct, and he knew Weir was that the old American cowboy music was really dear to Bob, so he just made a suggestion that they make a cowboy record, and at some point Bob came back and was like, I think.
So the record was all like country western, like old school?
Well, what it ended up being was the Blue Mountains record.
Okay, cool.
That came out, and it was like a year or so, and there were so many musicians who passed in and out of it. It's like it's a real honor. Yeah,
once you finally get to a level of Bob Weir, you can pretty much collab with anybody you want. Well, for the most part.
But the thing is, it's my friend Josh.
Yeah, of course.
He's like,
what an amazing story.
Yeah, he's bringing great collaborations together and producing music. He works a lot with Josh Ritter as well, and has a new band with a singer named Aeneas Mitchell and a guy from a band called Fruit Bats. Actually, that's a band. Totally.
Fruit
the LRS. Yeah, Fruit Bats. Totally.
Cool.
Yeah, like really inspiring players. They've just put a new band together called Bonnie Light Horseman, and
Love it, man. Your knowledge of music is just so fascinating.
Well, it's just I'm very fortunate to be to see just this wonderful community, musicians that are.
And work with the best, because literally when you look at all the people that you're working with right now, I mean, and I read your Instagram post yesterday too about how grateful you are to be collaborating with everybody you have been lately. I mean, you guys go back, you're with all the top musicians in the city, in my opinion.
Well, I mean,
there's so many.
I think it needs to be said of a time.
Time, right?
Because it's something that, growing up, I don't know if you had this experience, but I could get as psyched out going, to Phoenix Hill as I could going to a Bob Weir session. The integrity for people of what the musicians in this town have meant through history. We all are a part of it.
Absolutely.
We want it to be recognized. How broad does it need to grow or be? It's not as important as actually being in it. And I was telling there's this couple who've just moved to town and who are really inspired to open a venue. I really don't know any more than that, except I met them the other day, and I really hope it works out for them. They were asking, or we were talking about what I was going to be doing when I was in town, and I mentioned the show Sunday. I'm playing Friday at Jimmy Can't Dance.
Jimmy Can't Dance,
with Java Men.
Cool, and Java Men. Is that a reunion, by the way? Or have you all?
It's a reunion every time.
I love that answer. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So go check that out, Jimmy Can't Dance.
Yeah, and then I'm going to play with Tyrone Cotton at World Fest on Sunday.
Cool.
Night. Yeah, so I'm
speaking of World
very
Fest,
lucky.
Yes, you are, and we love Tyrone Cotton. I need to get him up on this show too. Yeah, he's another one that was up in New York when I was up in there. Remember that?
Yeah.
Speaking of World Fest,
with Ty.
Speaking of World Fest, LRS 102 The Walrus was just named the official radio station of World Fest. Yeah, and I do want to educate our listeners that World Fest, if you don't know, they're having their 17th annual event. It's going to run through August 30th through September 2nd. That's at the Belvedere. It's on Labor Day weekend. Man, it offers all kinds of international food, music, culture. Go get your culture on. It's a really cool event. We've got the whole lineup here. And when are you going to be on the lineup there?
Sunday night.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's around 8.
Yeah, let's see. There's so many different stages. It's crazy. Yeah, with Tyrone Cotton, New Orleans style music, 8:15 to 9 p.m. That's Sunday, September 1st.
Tyrone, if you're listening to this, we're playing New Orleans style music.
That's
Sunday.
what they've got you written in beside you, is New Orleans style.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, anybody is on that lineup. I actually just talked to Rick DeBoe was in here. He's on the lineup at the Fountain Stage. Marjorie Marshall, who I got to work with at She Castle, as well as Tanita Gaines. They're all on that list. Different stages, even Squeezebot's going to be there. There's all kinds of really cool, and those are just the local Louisville guys. There's all kinds of very cultural stuff going on musically. I love that stuff. Anything from Middle Eastern. I love all the Middle Eastern Bollywoody kind of stuff. I studied the Doombeck for a while and love playing that style. And there's all kinds of Latin, Argentina, and everything. It's just amazing. That's why I love World Fest. Another great reason to love Louisville too.
Yeah.
So go on and check that out, and check out Ray Rizzo with Tyrone Cotton while you're out there.
Yeah. We'll be playing Tyrone's. Well, actually, I'm sure there'll be some songs he didn't write, but we'll be playing a lot of his songs, which are...
Yeah, Tyrone is
amazing.
Great, man. He's another Louisville icon staple, I consider around here. You can go, you just find him everywhere. And, and then we, of course, like I said, we got to spend some time in New York City together. I wanted to tell you, thank you for introducing me to Penny Arcade, because she was one of the craziest, coolest chicks ever.
Indeed, she is.
I got to spend the night with her a couple nights, and she was just one of the most fascinating people that I met in New York City. Yeah. I was slightly intimidated. She's a very powerful woman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and not scared at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are so lucky she is in our world.
Yes, we are. Yeah, and then when I was staying at your place in New York City years later, I looked up and you had a whole book, on Penny Arcade.
Oh, Bad Reputation.
Stuff. Yeah, Bad Reputation.
there's a lot of chapters of the book as far as I'm concerned. She wrote.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I interviewed Shannon Conley, who is the lead singer of Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
She's also based in New York City.
Shannon and I worked together.
Okay, cool. She was on the show. Actually, had a call into the show. Yeah, and I got connected to her through the girls from Betty.
Steve. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who I got to play with in Michigan at Michigan Women's Music Festival. They had hired me to do that. So, yeah, they have all these contacts in Brooklyn and New York City, and they turned me on to Shannon. And Shannon was on Broadway as well as did the touring session of Hedwig. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was telling me everything she was doing. But I dropped Penny Arcade's name to her, and she was like, oh, yeah, Penny Arcade. She's just like an underground name that you can drop to anybody who knows anything about the New York City nightlife.
Oh, Shannon,
scene.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Penny needs to come back to Louisville.
I agree. Let's get her back to Louisville.
Get Penny.
Let's make it our mission at LRS to get Penny Arcade back to Louisville.
Yes.
And get her on this show.
Yeah.
Because she would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, her stories were insanity. She is the one who educated me about Brown County, Jane County, Wayne County, and all that story.
I don't know this.
It's a story about where they think Hedwig was they got the inspiration for Hedwig behind.
Oh.
Yeah. There was a friend named, Wayne County who used to be Jane County or turned into Jane County and, was an artist and stuff like that. But Penny Arcade is just a fascinating person. I mean, she was even hanging out with like Andy Warhol and that whole scene, that artistic scene back in the day in New York City.
Do you know about John Cameron Mitchell's new podcast?
No, I don't. Educate us.
The man who made Hedwig and that whole world has just dropped a podcast. It's on Luminary is the app, I think.
Okay, cool.
And I can't remember.
I will have to check that out because I'm a huge Hedwig fan.
I think it may be I think it's a game changer.
Oh, I do too. I only have, like we were saying earlier with theater, I only have a list of about 5 that I want to do. And if they ever come around, doesn't matter what the money is or anything, I'm going to take them no matter what. Hedwig's on the top of the list. It was when I had Jeff McAllister in here. Yes. I was telling him, I said, you're the only dude I ever lost an audition to. And he didn't know anything about it. And I said, I lost the audition at Hedwig at Actors Theater. I really wanted to do that show. And then I was like, who did they hire? And they said, Jeff McAllister. So I was like, obviously, man. Obviously, yeah.
Man, but talk about...
Yeah,
a man with stories and rhythm and warmth and all.
The music, though, to Hedwig has just always been my favorite. I love the storyline. And when I was a kid, I was always fascinated by the VHS cassette tape cover because when you used to walk into these like pre-Blockbuster places, to get your VHS tapes when you're a kid, I remember the Hedwig cover very well because it had Hedwig and I was already playing drums and the logo for Ludwig back then was when the L and the G combined. They had switched it from the cursive earlier, so Hedwig, it was there with the G and the H combined, and it was basically the Ludwig logo.
That's right.
And I was like, that's weird with this beautiful like half man half woman character on there looking glamorous, and I was always just captured by that immediately. And I don't know why I used to just stare at it. So I grew up loving that musical. Hopefully it'll come around. I'll get to play it eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah.
Amazing.
Great one.
Well, I wanted to mention, you mentioned Shannon, and in New York, we have a band with our friend Amber Martin, who is out touring now with John Cameron Mitchell. He's doing an Origin of Love tour where he talks about anyway, Amber and Shannon and I and 10 other wizards have this show where we play. It's called the Carnaby Street Girls, and it's all women of the British invasion.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. There is stuff online, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we do like Cilla Black and Dusty Springfield, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man,
great project. You're always in the most fascinating projects ever.
Well, that's what New York is like. That's the gift of that city that still keeps.
Yeah, I love that city. I feel like it beats me up though. I'm such a country girl at heart. Even Louisville is kind of big for me, and I don't mind bigger. I love big cities and the culture and the differences, and and learning all about the art scene and stuff like that. It just after I'm there for like 2 weeks, I feel so beat up.
Yeah,
because it can wear you down.
Oh, I mean,
it never stops.
It wore Tracy and I down, and didn't necessarily build us back up all the way. We had to do a lot of it ourselves.
Yeah, I totally get it, man.
But it's a place it constantly insists that you negotiate with it and say, why am I still here? Like, anyone that's come to that city has come for a reason, and not everyone is like, I don't know. It's a very giving human experiment to be part of,
Definitely, I once wanted to write a song called Green Cement because when I went to New York City, I was like, wow, there's a lot of green cement here. And then I realized that they were painting their cement to look like yards. Yeah. Because it's all like a concrete jungle, basically. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. They don't have, barely have yards here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, but I've had some great times in New York City, man. Just some, I've gone, once a year, almost every year since I was younger in my 20s. And I just love that place. There's always something cool going on.
I remember when Craig Wagner and I were at Bellarmine together, and Todd was there too. He had graduated, but, was hanging around with us. They'll laugh if they hear a common joke that Todd's always just hanging around.
Love that.
Can't get rid of him.
If I ever see him, I'm going to say that to him.
All right. Well, I mentioned Todd though because all three of us were taught by Steve Cruz, pianist, who I think is still over there. I'm not sure. And Steve really impressed upon me the importance of staying in touch with what's happening in other cities, and he would say that at least once a year he would go to New York to hear what was going on, and
musically, artistically,
and artistically, and it's a way I feel about New Orleans too, and I think that kind of pursuit is I don't know what got me off on this now. I'm forgetting what we were just saying.
Going to New York City and
like coming and visiting. It's like,
scene. Yeah, that's another cool thing about Louisville is like, and I'm sure you can relate to this because you've gotten away from the city. Every time I try to get away from here, because I have zero family here, so I always consider the music. The musical family, the LGBTQ community, my family here. And every time I try to get away from here and like go to Nashville or go wherever, Louisville just sucks me back in every single time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just about to move to Nashville and then boom, I ended up with this job and was like, well, I guess I'm supposed to stay in Louisville. You know what I mean? And next thing you know, I'm back in the Highlands. Here we are again, 21 years later. Yeah, no kidding. But there's just something magical about this place that sucks you back in, compared to other cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we decided to move to New York when we were 32 and 33. So it was late in life, and there'd been a lot of life already lived. So we consciously stayed connected to here, like the home and that which is here. I feel like I've been able to, remain. It's remained part of my, life. The
life force, and you've always come back because you're always doing. One day I'll see you in, in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Bowl. And the next day you're down here, doing Mother Lodge or something like that, or the Back to Mac project, or something else. By the way, whose idea was it from the Back to Mac to like recreate the cover of that record?
That's me.
Okay, that's a genius idea. Yeah. I was like, they perfectly recreated that. Yeah, you and Kimmett are genius at that.
Well, Gary Quick is the photographer, and I'm sure I'm sure his name has not remained on the photo for all the times we've used it at this point. But it was. It's always coming across my timeline.
It's always
so funny.
Yeah,
it's it did.
It is funny. The fact that they even did that album cover, in general, makes me laugh. Because I think every person, once they see that for the first time, is just staring at it for a minute. Like, did they really do that?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Are the balls really hanging between his legs?
The balls are really hanging between his legs, in the silhouette form, you're not for sure what they are. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's
in
just
our case,
funny.
They were ping pong balls wrapped in electrical tape.
Oh, okay, interesting. I love that.
DIY.
Fun fact. Yeah, DIY. Did you study that on YouTube? How do I wrap balls from Fleetwood Mac's record and hang them between my legs to look just like the original? I guarantee there's a YouTube do-it-yourself tutorial on that somewhere. If there's not, somebody make one now.
Right.
Oh, I got to ding the bell on that just because that was just too
that
fun.
Deserved a couple.
Yeah,
dingers.
I agree. I forgot about that record cover until it just hit me, and I was like, oh yeah, that Back to Mac. That's just brilliant. Great idea.
Yeah.
Great. Of course, as always. Yeah. I want to remind everybody that you can join LRS102.com Saturday, August 31st for the final outdoor summer concert series at Floyd County Brewing Company. That's a first in Maine and New Albany for a shot to win free VIP bourbon and beyond tickets. And guess what? We'll be broadcasting live LRS from 8 to 11 with music from the Golden Ticket. Someday soon, Chris Rubino and the Newburgh Soul. So come on out and taste some fantastic craft beer at the best outdoor venue in the region and listen to LRS, the Walrus at Floyd County Brewing Company. We're getting back into this cool thing where we're getting sponsored by all these groups that have live music at them, and LRS used to do that back in the day.
Yeah.
So, as we talked about earlier, it's so cool to have that format, and not be owned by, corporate radio where they're telling you what you have to spend and whatnot, and just being able to talk to artists like you in the studio, and get your story.
Oh, it's amazing to walk in and not see a playlist somewhere.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, and do you remember the old homemade records that they used to put out?
Yes.
Yeah, check this one out. Now, our listeners can't see it, but it's one of the first homemade records, and it's got this elderly lady on the front, which our guest yesterday knew her name, or Jeff Baxter knew her name, Jyneration or something like that. Yeah, but anyway, it's the homemade albums. I want to bring this back. And back in the day, LRS did these cool homemade records with all these like local artists, and then they would put them out.
And were they often recorded at Phoenix Hill, or were there some?
Let's see where this one was recorded. I don't think this one was the
Carpenter's?
Fultz Recording Studio. Is what it said. Oh, LRS. It says no. Also did some of the recordings out of the LRS 102 homemade concert mobile unit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were serious about it.
Yeah. You know what I was just thinking? I've often told Jim this, Skinny J, that every radio station has a cool vehicle, and I own a '73 Volkswagen camper bus. That's awesome, and I told him, I was like, we ought to make that the official like groovy LRS bus. My other goal with it is to put a recording studio in it. So how cool would it be if we could do recordings out of the '73 camper bus rolling down the road somewhere?
I see all this coming together.
Yeah, to make the LRS 102 homemade records from the mobile unit recording studio. Just saying, great idea. Yeah. Yay, we love ideas. So hopefully we'll get this brought back. LRS was pretty historic for lots of cool things, and this is definitely one of them.
Cool. Well, and if y'all ever want to do another live from Phoenix Hill, we'll get one of those condos on the corner of.
I think we should.
Baxter. We'll just Airbnb it and have a little. Live from Phoenix Hill, LRS. Live
from, we should definitely do that. I am all about that, so that we can literally be still saying that we're live from Phoenix Hill, even though we're in the tall 10-story condos.
Yeah. But someone over there is gonna be Airbnb-ing the shit out of that place.
Yeah, they really should. They should also make it a recording studio, somewhere you can have live house concerts. You know what I'm saying? Live house concerts still from Phoenix Hill will never die. You know what I mean? And the Walrus and Phoenix Hill, I feel like were synonymous back in the day. They kind of ran together. I remember when they'd always do the live broadcast down at Phoenix Hill. All the bands were cycling out.
Yeah.
Man, what a sad place to lose over the years.
Well, yeah. This is reminding me that the concert that we did last Sunday, the Billy Hardison from Production Simple was like, it needs a name. Why don't we call it the concert that never was?
I love that name.
2, he's like, because there was a concert that never was years ago, and I think it was maybe a QMF thing, but it was like some tribute band concert that happened downtown. And I haven't got a lot of information about it, but I've become like I'm not quite to the Ken Burns level curious yet, but
right.
But I want to know about this concert that never was one.
Yeah, well, if anybody's out there listening that knows anything about that, hit us up on online and let us know what you think about, or what you know about the concert that never was one.
Yeah,
we don't know where it was though in Louisville.
I think it was downtown.
Okay.
And like a gravel lot near the river, like when it was not nearly as nice as it is now.
As nice and as groovy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was down River Road not too long ago. I love River Road. It's just one of the most gorgeous places in all of Louisville. I feel like when it's a beautiful, chill day, even a fall day, I love to drive down through there, and just roll your windows down, jam some music, and hit River Road.
Yeah.
Such a cool space. I know the Villbillies, they went on to write a song. There's something about River Road in one of their songs, which always cracks me up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, do you know those guys, by the way?
Yeah,
well, met those guys?
I met them, and what's the there's one singer who kind of
Demi, yeah,
Demi. Okay,
Demi.
so Demi and I communicated for one of those other Strive fundraiser shows.
Yeah.
When we did the Justin Timberlake one, there was like for a minute he was gonna join the Justin Timberlake band, and then it didn't.
Really? Well, that's interesting.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, right.
But that's my memory of what I think of it. We did definitely email about it, and but I never met him. But I know Brian Cronin, who for a couple years was playing and recording, and he played me some amazing music.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know when did they last put something out? Are they still?
I don't know. I haven't been paying attention to that a lot lately, but I know that they still do shows around here, and I was a big fan of that Yellow record, whatever the name of it is. Yeah, and I always thought the name was really cool. Louisville's got some crazy cool names. You've always had cool band names. What was the one? The Lovely Sauce. Or wait, Lovely Bones, Groovy Sauce and Lovely Bones. What is it?
Exactly.
It's exactly Love Juice and something. I don't know.
Love Sauce.
Love Sauce.
And the Soul Bones.
And the Soul Bones. Mm-hmm. What a great name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were like Rusted Root meets Tony Tone.
Oh, I love that. Ooh, I love both of those. I was basically birthed in hip hop, so I'm a big hip hop fan.
Wow.
I always have been.
Oh, yeah.
Soon as electronic drums, I could have my hands on those. I had the big old Simmons-y, Roland-y, octagons back in the 80s. And, I had the first little drum machine, the one that just did the choom, 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 and you could get like one hand clap that was horrible on it, I was always a geek like that. What do you use today, by the way? Do you use any electronic drums with your kit?
I sometimes employ a loop pedal still with a delay.
Ooh, I love that.
But other than that, it's, at least at the moment, it's pretty acoustic.
Acoustic stuff, yeah.
I'm setting up, I've started doing some solo sets, actually, around Brooklyn.
Love that.
And I just show up with a guitar, if there's a drum set there, and then a little keyboard, kind of figure it out. So I'm psyched to do more of that.
Yeah.
Again, there was a period of time where Todd Hildreth and I used to play at the Red Lounge on Frankfurt Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
We had a group called Yow, Instant Auto Classics was the whole, but it was basically, we called it Yow, and we just improvised in the kind of vein of Bitches Brew and Medeski, Martin and Wood, like all the Dust Brothers were a big influence.
Miles Davis stuff. I'm a huge. Do you like Tony Williams? Yeah, man, Tony Williams is like
Fide Kilimanjaro is my Drop Dead record.
I'm not. Yeah. He just is one of those cats that he is such on a different level that it's like you can't even find his one half the time. I'm like, what is he playing?
Yeah.
I also heard the story about, we talked a lot about Mick Fleetwood, that Jeff Porcaro, when Toto was on tour with Fleetwood Mac, would stand off to the side of the stage, and when he would come off of the stage, he'd be like, how in the hell are you doing that? Jeff Porcaro couldn't even understand what Mick Fleetwood's body was doing.
Right.
He was a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
Which is I would think a huge honor, because I consider Porcaro up there with, Mick Fleetwood, and some of his recordings.
Absolutely.
He went out really early. But holy crap at the recordings that guy did, and the groove that he had.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just reading about his. He told a story about going to a drum clinic, and he knew that everyone was going to want to talk about Rosanna.
Yeah.
So he brought in "Fool in the Rain." He brought in "Home at Last," and this is a guy that played with Steely Dan.
Yeah, exactly.
At his and he's like, if you're so interested in this,
groove,
yeah,
right.
he was really paying tribute to
Bernard
the drummers
Purdy
that he came
and Bonham.
Yeah. But
yeah, because nowadays it's so cool. They get their own shuffle named after them. It's like now it's the Purdy Shuffle, and that's the specific one from the Steely Dan record, right?
Yeah.
And then Bonham kind of took influence from that and did it in Fool in the Rain.
Right.
And had another hit with it. And he adds a few little ghost notes here and there and changes like the kick pattern or something. And then boom, you have the Bonham version of that shuffle, the halftime shuffle. And then now Rosanna, and Jeff has clearly said in his DVDs, if you watch them, that he took influence from both of those, and then he added a 3-2 kick drum pattern that swung underneath of basically the Purdy Shuffle, and then created his own, which we now call the Picaro Shuffle of the halftime shuffle. So that halftime shuffle is fascinating. It's a incredibly hard groove to master.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like I've worked on it for years, and still can't do some of the like cool stuff that they do. I feel like I was talking to Marvin Maxwell about this too, and Max, you just have to be so relaxed when you do that groove. That one and the double handed shuffle, those are grooves for drummers that I feel like we have to bring all this energy to our shows and to our instrument, because we're really just passing that vibration off to everybody else in there, and it's this cycle we talked about. But you also have to be so relaxed in your technique to be able to achieve some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Incredibly hard.
I'm curious to ask you about the gigs you play, because something that I've focused on easily since I got into my 30s is making big sounds quietly, and I'm really I think of myself as a singer's drummer.
Yeah, I could see that.
So like the volume on stage is a big deal. I can hit hard, and my ears were ringing at the end of the concert the other night at Iroquois Amphitheater.
Yeah.
But I really feel like when the overall volume on the stage isn't necessary, like when the amp doesn't have to be turned up that loud, that it can hit the tubes, so that
and every venue's different, outside's different for that,
But when the overall and technology now, sound technology is making it easier to try this kind of stuff, but I feel like the stage volumes still so loud, and I am older, but it's just too loud. Like anyone singing is gonna have a shitty time because the guitar amp has to be facing in the same direction, and and I think when that volume comes down, we as drummers are actually able to throw energy out in different ways. And
absolutely. Well, there's a famous Victor Wooten in his book. If you read his stuff, he always talks about if you want to control the audience, he said bring the dynamic way down, always the volume. And I feel like drummers, we control that. We control the volume.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if we're playing super loud, then the guitarist is always gonna try to match you.
Right.
But if you bring it down here, then obviously everybody brings it down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Or they should be blending at least. But every venue's different. I feel like it's so easy to play at a quieter volume when you have good sound.
Yes.
Obviously, and great monitors.
Right.
If you're just at a hole in the wall, and I try to judge by every venue, and I didn't pay attention to that for a long time, but that's just something I feel like you learn as you age and you keep playing.
Yeah.
Is that you do control the dynamic volume.
Yeah.
And it's best to blend and not stand out in front, because obviously the message is in your singing, your vocal lyrics and stuff like that. So I don't know, every band's kind of different. In theater, though, I know definitely in The Girlfriend at Actors Theater, that was probably some of the quietest dynamics that I ever had to play with for a long period of time.
Yep.
And Vicki Randall, who I highly admire, who was the drummer. She was the first female drummer on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. She played the conga, and she went on to tour with Lionel Richie on his Dance on the Ceiling tour, Aretha Franklin, Mavis Staples, Whitney Houston, Quincy Jones, just to name a few. She's a badass.
Yeah.
I got to play with her once, and she brought Bonnie Hayes also, who had written Bonnie Hayes is one of the songwriter professors at Berklee School of Music and wrote a lot of Bonnie Raitt's hits like Love Letter and stuff like that. Those two came to see us in L.A. and Vicky said, wow, Jen, she was like, because in that play, when you got to open up, I was behind a plexi, so I could really open up if I wanted to without affecting the stage volume. But yeah, I had to go from the craziest highs of highs in that Matthew Sweet record, Girlfriend, to the lowest of lows to the underscore, where it was almost non-existent that I was hitting the snare. Like a couple times I noticed I would hit it so quiet you couldn't even hear it. You know what I mean? And she really complimented me on that, and I took that as a huge compliment from her. Because she was like, that's what they look for. And especially in theater, I've noticed they're very cautious about the volumes and stuff like that. Yeah.
In theater rehearsals, there's no dialing in your tone between takes or like like warming up on stage. It's like the room needs to be dead silent until it's time to make another, and some musicians just cannot handle that.
I've had a hard time. I mean, playing a drum set, being behind a drum set, it's the hardest thing in the world when you've got to be completely silent. You might accidentally drop a drum key, or your hi-hat might crunch, or I've learned now to just grab my hi-hats and crunch them with my hand and then step on the pedal. Like there are things that I've learned. Grab the sticks closer to the center if you want softer, you know what I mean, and quieter. Play up more off to the side of the snare, not in the center of the snare. There are things that you learn in theater that I feel like help you with dynamics. There's only 9 levels of dynamics, they say, but I always say there's thousands of levels of dynamics. And drumming is all about stick height is your dynamic. So if you bring it down, obviously it's going to be quiet. If you bring it, just basic things I teach my kids. Yeah, because dynamics are so important. But Victor Wooten, go back to him. He does have a whole section in his book where he talks about if you're up here and you're really loud in volume, you say you're playing it like double forte or something like that, and then boom, you bring it down. He was like, you'll control that crowd every time. They'll stop and they will pay attention because it triggers something in the ear that it all of a sudden dropped. And then they pay attention.
Yeah, you're right. It's I like the term. You're changing the temperature.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what dynamics are really doing. Is like, whoa, what just the atmosphere just changed. It's not just like, the band broke down in the third verse. It's like, cool.
But I do feel like as drummers we control that. More so than almost any other instrument. And I feel like that playing with people that understand that just comes in time of just really understanding musicality. And knowing their instrument and how to properly play, and and like we said, every venue's different. If you're outside, it's something it's a whole different thing than if you're playing in some little small place inside. Your sound's going to be different every room you play. So you got to take that into consideration. And I've bought like different kits over the years. I'm sure you have too. I have a little Questlove pocket kit, that I play if I'm going to have a really small venue, or if it's an Americana type artist. I feel like we have to strip our stuff down. You know what I mean? A whole lot, and play a whole lot more softer type stuff.
Well, I actually moving to New York, for Tracy and I, it's been a whole other level of living with austerity measures, all the time. I haven't bought a drum set. I've bought one drum set since I've moved to New York, and it was a nesting kit.
I would think it'd be hard to have a drum set in New York.
Well, City. I mean, I've got that space, and I've got storage, and actually that storage space, like people would leave drums there, so I'm not without drums, but it's funny when Scott Langford, who brought the drums for Sunday's show at Iroquois, was like, if you ever need a kit, and I was like, whoa, like in a Max. I mean, you think about people like these people should have.
I was going to ask you about that kit on Sunday, because you have to have a large setup to recreate the Back to Mac, I would think, and the Steely Dan.
Well, Scott brought this kit that was it was a DW. It was the P something series maple, really thin shells, just big, concert Tommy kind of sound, and it was amazing.
By the way, my dad has the 1960 Silver Sparkle Ludwig kit that Mick Fleetwood played in the I think it was in the earlier inceptions of Fleetwood Mac. It's a 60s Ludwig Silver Sparkle with 2 26-inch kicks. It's a huge setup. But I've seen Mick Fleetwood behind the exact same one in multiple pictures of their tours and stuff. The
kit that I have out with Josh Ritter right now is this 26-inch Slingerland kick, Yamaha bronze snare that was like the backup snare in the tour mess, and then a 13-inch Ludwig tom with the bottom taken off, so it's like a floor tom for the rack.
Yeah. We love those bottom heads taken off, man. That means it's going to be loud.
And then a super tight DW 14x14 on this side of
it's like a Frankenstein kit.
Floor. Yeah. And the left side is a 13-inch drum by this company, Whitney. Are you familiar with Whitney drums?
I'm not, no.
They make these nesting kits, and we'll look them up online.
Sure,
Show you. But anyway, it's like a really unique drum. So it's a total Frankenstein.
Cool. I love a Frankenstein kit. Yeah, those are the best. Yeah. Well, you picked out a song by Walter Martin. Tell us a little bit about this song that you wanted to spin.
Well, Walter doesn't remember this, I don't think, but we met at the Rudyard Kipling. Would have been 2002, I think. He was playing in the Walkmen. Is the keyboard player for the Walkmen.
Love that.
Yeah, and
we're gonna spin his track right now.
Yeah, so this is I mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
There it is. It's Walter Martin with "Do Dilly Do," a friend like you on LRS102.com. That's Walter Martin, Do Dilly Do. I'm joined by Ray Rizzo up on Jyneration Nation, LRS102.com. Ray, thank you so much for coming in today. It's been an honor talking to you about drums and music, and, you just stay so busy. It's awesome. If anybody wants to see you, they can check you out. Back to Mac, right? When's the next time you all are playing?
I think we're going to do an acoustic-ish show.
Cool.
At the Odeon in November.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're almost settled on a date.
Yeah, Steely Danish still rocking. You got the Java Men coming up at Jimmy Can't Dance.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else you want to promote? You're in a kabillion bands.
Right. Well, Steely Danish will be playing. This is hilarious. Steely Danish will be playing December 28th at Zanzibar.
Oh, I love that. Z-Bar is awesome.
Yeah. It's.
My buddy Freakbass is about to play there coming up next weekend, I think, yeah.
And then I'll be playing the last Waterfront Wednesday on the 25th of September with Josh Ritter. And
I love that.
Yeah, Sam, who goes by Shake Anderson, who is the singer of that band you asked about, Love Sauce and Soul Bones.
Yeah.
Do you know who all was in that band?
No, but I know Shake Anderson.
Okay, so Shake was... it was Shake, Maurice Hamilton, Danny Kiley, Paul Culligan.
Oh, yeah.
Me.
Right.
Scott Anthony.
Wait, you and Paul Culligan were in the band?
David Bergman. I was like the percussionist hype guy.
Okay, I was going to say, what did you do if Paul Culligan was in the band?
I kept stuff together.
Yeah, I hear you. I keep trying to get Culligan up in here if he'll answer his damn phone.
Yeah, he's got to.
I know he's busy. He's busy. Yeah. Come on, Paul Culligan, come up in here.
Get over here.
Yeah, I know. He's another one of my favorite drummers to watch.
Too. He just recorded with Glenn Johns.
No,
I
did
over
not
at La
know
La
that.
Land.
Oh, cool.
Glenn Johns was in Louisville.
Wow, so interesting.
You should hit him up and get those stories.
Oh, I'm gonna get everybody you play with. I want up in here. Basically, if I haven't had them before, I want them all up in here. We had Bob Ramsey on here the other day, which he was cool, man. And just like all three of us go back, it all goes back to marching band too. Almost always goes back to marching band. I got one of my starts at the Adair County Marching Band, so represent. He talked about how marching band was a big influence in his life, getting his career started. So we love that. Everybody who's in marching bands represent. Totally. Even the color guard, we love the color guard too, and the fife bands. Yeah. Anyway, Ray, it's been an honor to have you up in our studio as always.
Thanks,
I'm gonna leave you with I love you, and I wish you the best and success in music, and hopefully we'll get to jam together on something soon and rock out that solo record is what I keep saying.
Yep.
I'm gonna leave them with some Grateful Dead. It's trucking.
All right.
You're locked on to LRS102.com. Tune in tomorrow, and as always, keep it groovy, man.
Trucking, got my chips.